Welcome to Pod of Ages, a League of Legends esports podcast for fans by fans about being a fan. I'm Cathy, Textdoll on Twitter, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host Linda, who can be found on iCrystallization on Twitter. Today, we will be tackling an esports classic, namely the first episode of Sanshao Says, all about abstinence and being a pro gamer. What are crazy ideas people have about abstinence and performance? Is the married man meta real? And is Bdd actually Madlife's wife? For our second topic, we'll dive into the world of esports haircuts, from Clearlove's Bowlcut to Doublelift's Bowlcut to Wild Turtle's Bowlcut. And as always, we'll end with our weekly recommendations. But first, it is playoffs, and since we did our last episode kind of checking in on where everybody is with, playoffs and team performance, I thought we'd just take a quick 5 minutes to update. Linda, EDG.
Yeah, it's... Okay, 5 minutes. I'm gonna try to make it 5 minutes and not 5 hours about me.
It's not 5 minutes on EDG. It's literally 1 minute on EDG.
Okay, 1 minute
I'm
on
timing
EDG.
you.
1 minute on EDG. Alright, so they match of the week, they were up against IG, their final game of the regular season. Their first game was near perfect. I was like, is this my team? How are they playing so well? Then in classic EDG fashion, they got completely stomped in game 2. I was like, okay, that's my team. And then in game 3, they dragged it out in this massive slugfest of 45 minutes that ended up with an open Nexus, and iBoy only had one auto away from taking it down, but then they all died and IG won the game.
So are they out?
Okay, no, they're still in. They're in playoffs, but if they had won against IG, they would have had a better seeding.
Got it. Okay. So, in LEC, not that you guys aren't paying attention, of course, Misfits is not even in playoffs, so mostly it's just, Fnatic totally wiped the floor with Vitality, which was very sad.
Yeah.
And Splice versus SK Gaming was a little bit more interesting, but Splice 3-1'd, and so they're moving on. And I kind of forgot the LEC system. I mean, they're doing some weird thing that none of the other leagues are doing.
It's some weird, the first seed or second seed, if you fall there, you can still have a chance to, it's kind of like a loser's bracket, I think.
Yeah.
They've added something like that.
Of course, the upshot being that I think the first, second, and third teams are going to play on Saturday and Sunday, and so essentially whoever... there's essentially a team that's going to be playing 2 best of 5s,
yes,
right, in a row. So that's basically the upshot of the LEC. And then in LCK on relegation watch, KT, of course,
let's not
lost the games that we thought they were going to lose, and so are in relegation this summer. So they're in the summer promotion match with Generic Green Wings. And for the people who maybe aren't familiar, unlike me, with watching the relegation match, it's actually called the summer promotion match. And what happens is whoever is first place in Challengers Korea, which I think is still APK Prince right now, gets automatically seeded into the summer promotion match. And then whoever wins kind of the final playoff between essentially the second and third Challengers Korea teams gets the second slot into that. And then the 2 lowest ranked teams from LCK then also play. And it's also it's kind of there's also a losers bracket that goes up kind of thing, so it's not
the end of the world.
You can lose against one of the Challengers Korea teams and still not lose your spot, but essentially KT has to win at least against one of the Challengers Korea teams, to not get relegated. So they don't have to win against both of them, I think. But anyway, I think
it's becoming
I don't know.
It's becoming the depressed about KT episode part 2.
Yeah, so we're not gonna dwell on this much because we kind of already dwelled on it in episode 4. But I don't really think. I mean, I think if there is going to be a team that's relegated, I think it's Generic Green Wings and not KT.
Yeah.
So really the question is if we think both of the Challengers Korea teams are better than KT, and I don't have an answer for you.
I'm still standing by the fact that BDD cannot lose to Mickey. and I will live and die by this fact. And if they do lose, then I guess I just have to die. That's how it is.
Yes, so that's how it is. And
LCS.
then in LCS, I guess happier news depending on who you support. We're recording this as we always do on my Sunday morning, which means we haven't seen Echo Fox versus TSM yet. So the last game that we saw was a full best of 5 between FlyQuest and Golden Guardians, which was actually really fun. They weren't like the best games in the world. I think like FlyQuest did some. I really think FlyQuest should have won before the full best of 5 came into being. But it's been really fun. Obviously, they played tiebreaker games for the last regular season games of LCS as well. So this is more like a best of 7, to be perfectly honest.
Yep.
And FlyQuest came out on top. Santorin had the post-game interview, like the immediate post-game interview, and he was really emotional about it. It was so great. It's been like a great week for FlyQuest content because he also was the most recent Drive video
and
topic. I don't really know what to call.
And also
subject.
Also the article that you wrote, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah, so I also wrote an article about FlyQuest content. Which is a little bit less focused on the players themselves, but that's also on the LoL Esports website. Anyway, it's been a great week for FlyQuest. I hope they make it really far to semifinals. Also, really, happy/sad for Golden Guardians. They've really pulled it up from where they started on Spring Split and also from last year. Probably a couple hours after this, we'll see what happens with TSM versus Echo Fox.
Yes.
Okay. And programming note so of course this is a bi-weekly podcast, so the next time we'll be recording, it'll actually be LCS/LEC/LCK finals. I am actually going to be in St. Louis for the LCS finals. I do hope that TL is there, but if not, either way, I'll be there. So I don't know what we're gonna do for recording. I think maybe we'll still try to record that Sunday after the game, which is on Saturday.
We can be extra depressed or extra happy depending on the outcome.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. There might be quality issues depending on whether or not I take my mic. I might try to see if I can get, again, bad quality or mediocre quality recordings with other people who are there. We'll see what we can do with the podcast. I mean, it'll be fun. So if we don't come out with a timely episode, you'll know why. It's because we're not actually very good at doing podcasts. Okay. Is there anything else I'm missing about next episode, Linda?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah, that pretty much covers it.
Okay, so topic 1. So this came up in a conversation where we found out that some people who we thought knew better had actually never read/watched this amazing piece of esports content.
It is the greatest.
It is one of the first things I ever learned about the LPL. And so what it is it's Sanshao, and I'm going to have you introduce Sanshao. Who is he? Okay,
so Sanshao is EDG's former manager, and he is RNG's current manager. So he was very active with EDG content during around 2015. He would have these MSI diaries or Worlds diaries where he went through what they did and how their days were. And then after that, he started doing his own content where he released episodes about esports topics, and it's not about jungle pathing or things like that. But one of the first episodes was basically, if you wish to climb, you must be abstinent. And that's exactly as the title says.
So we're going to put a link to it in our episode notes, but you really should, if you haven't already seen this episode, which is on QQ. It's like a 20-minute episode maybe. And then so the Tumblr URL is Nami Sashimi, but the person is Sin, who was at Idiosyncrasy on Twitter. So she very generously did a full translation of this and actually all of the Sanshao Says episodes. And you really should read or watch the episode before you listen to the rest of this discussion, because the only other option would be for us to dramatically read this very long translation. It's really good. So I guess we should start. Linda, what is kind of the point of if you wish to climb, you must be abstinent?
Okay, so the point is basically no girls allowed. That's it. No relationships, no girlfriends, because they're distractions, and they're going to make you suffer, aka not climb, and your performance is gonna fall dramatically.
Right.
And it's just, like Cathy just said, like if we go through this, it's just gonna become a dramatic reading of of all his thoughts, because he has so many interesting. I think my favorite part is where Sanshao basically, he doesn't reveal it, but basically I feel like the reason why he made this episode was because he talks about how there was this, not too long after we first started this team, there was a cute girl who kept asking for my contact information. And then he says after he gave her his information, she texted him, Sanshao, I really like you. Then my heart was so nervous. And then her second line was, Sanshao, can you give me Clearlove's contact information?
Yes. So, I mean, it's sort of hard to really... So basically, let's put some context to it. He starts the episode and he talks about he's working with this girl that he calls Butterfly, who I guess is like part of the EDG management, and she keeps screwing up. And then it turns out that she had just broken up with her boyfriend. And so this kind of segues into all the ways that a relationship can affect your performance. And then he tells kind of a long story about somebody, I don't know, Linda, do you actually know who this is? Like somebody he was trying to get to join EDG. He offers this pro player who's just starting off a position on EDG, and then the pro player like almost rejects it because Sanshao basically says like, if you join EDG you can't have a girlfriend. And so there's this long story where like finally the pro player is like basically essentially like, I'd rather join EDG than stay with my girlfriend. And then he tells this story about essentially this girl using him for Clearlove's number. And it's kind of hard to not see this whole discussion as like him being upset that somebody wanted Clearlove's. Like, right? It's like really hard to not... Because the story doesn't actually make sense, right? Like, it's not like he was in any way distracted from his job because this girl was flirting with him. Like, he doesn't make that argument. So it just kind of is like this random anecdote in the middle of this story that's like, oh, then, by the way, one time, like, somebody who I thought was flirting with me turned out just to want Clearlove's number.
I mean, same, but also, I can understand. I mean... Yeah, it's just he's so dramatic about everything. Like he talks about FCZF, which was EDG's former support. He was formerly on WE, and then he went with Clearlove to EDG when EDG first started. And Sanshao talks about how he was dating someone, and they broke up and made up many times, but that FCZF performed the best when he just broke it up with his girlfriend. And it's just so funny how he uses that example as like a, haha, gotcha. This is why relationships are bad.
Yes. And I want to kind of break down that particular part, because ultimately his point is like, pro players get really distracted when they're dating somebody and they don't give 100% to the game or to the practice, right? And there's really only two parts in this long rant that are truly relevant to that topic. And one of them is where he's like, okay, instead of thinking about what items you buy, you think about like whether or not you were going to eat lunch with your girlfriend, which whatever, like I guess it's cute. But then there's this anecdote he gives about FCZF, and like I actually don't think the anecdote proves his thesis.
Yeah. I don't know, it's very like correlation equals causation, things like that. Like, oh, well, they're broken up right now and he's performing really well right now. So obviously it's because of the breakup and not because of like other things.
Like he tells a story, they're in a team fight, you know, like I guess FZZF is like on was he on Leona?
Yeah,
he was on
it's Leona.
I'm reading this again. So he's on Leona and he hasn't reached level 6 yet. And then he takes a minion, he reaches level 6, and then he dominates the team fight. But there's like no part of this which relates back to FCCF having broken up with his girlfriend. It's just kind of like, oh, like look at this amazing team fight. And then FCCF says, and I quote from the translation, "That was so risky. Luckily, I'd taken all experience runes on Leona. If anything had gone wrong, at least I would have still gotten to level 6 first. Then the team fights would be easy." And then he says, "You see, everyone, this is the benefit of not dating." Like, there's no connection between those two sentences. It's just like thrown out there that FCCF taking all experience runes on Leona and going like essentially all in on that ult.
This is you know,
was the result of not dating.
This is peak logic. You know, we'll never. This is like a 300 IQ play right here.
And it was all because FCCF was like, you know, so it's like a really funny rant, in part because I still can't separate it from the fact that he essentially was sidelined for Clearlove. And this is part of a kind of a pretty long history.
Yeah, definitely.
Of people claiming that pro players, maybe abstinent is a little bit
too extreme,
too much. Yeah. But so in I think it was 2017. Yes, it's 2017. Crumbs also came out with a video called "Girlfriends Are Ruining the LCS." Mm-hmm. And then he had to explain in a Blitz interview, I'll link both of these, both the original video and the Blitz interview, that really what he's saying is, pro players are not very good at dealing with interpersonal relationships. And then the pressures of the gaming house, and they're essentially like coddled in the gaming house, and they don't really know how to properly prioritize things. Mm-hmm. And then so ultimately, like, the girlfriend thing is like too distracted. Like, basically the whole thing is like they're bad at interpersonal relationships. It's like TLDR what he's trying to say. And it's kind of hard to explain whether or not he was actually tongue-in-cheek about saying girlfriends are ruining LCS. Like, he is, but he also isn't. So, I don't know. Like, this is a debate that doesn't die. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wonder how you feel about it. Like, of course, Linda, knowing that both of us are not pro players, so we can't really actually tell you whether or not banging before a game actually is bad. But, like,
how do you feel about it? On that. But I feel that, like, the video with Crumbs, it's kind of like, it reflects mostly what the community thinks. And I feel like the majority of the esports community, at least League of Legends, they see dating and things like that as a distraction.
Right.
And they'll look at girlfriends or basically having a partner that, oh, well, how are you supposed to balance your pro player life when you have a partner or a girlfriend, because now you have to split the time and all of that, and you're not going to be fully dedicated. Because I still feel that people are still in this mindset that you have to play 14 hours a day for a whole split to be a hardworking, dedicated player. And if you don't do that, then you're a slacker, and you're awful, and you're not as dedicated as everyone else. And if you have a girlfriend, then it's like, well, obviously you're not going to practice a lot. And yeah, I feel like there's still the stigma around just relationships in general, and that people just don't think that pro players are able to balance work and personal life. And maybe some aren't, but I feel like nowadays a lot of them have proven that they're pretty capable of balancing personal and their work life.
I'm thinking about it because definitely in 2018, you had Ambition, who finally got married to his longtime girlfriend, mm-hmm. who herself actually used to work as a buff girl for LCK, and they were girls who essentially would come out in the middle of the game, like sometimes dressed up, kind of like cheer players on. And in Overwatch League, the same thing. Say Bjelby, who was a DPS player for New York Excelsior, married his longtime girlfriend before coming to the United States to play for NYXL and the Overwatch League, and famously, had a picture of her that he would bring as his good luck charm, and he would put it next to his computer while he was playing games. So I think there's been, not only just like girlfriends, but actual wives now. LCK wives. And I remember when Zazel was on the dive this year, so Sneaky moved out of the Cloud9 team house and is now living alone with his girlfriend. And Zazel actually was saying that he thinks that Sneaky's has improved a lot since then, kind of like ironically, compared to what everybody would think. So it's kind of interesting because I think there's been this long history with traditional sports where people think, oh, you can't have sex before a big game because, I don't know, like in traditional sports it's a little bit different because the argument has always been that it somehow reduces your testosterone or your muscle mass.
Wow.
Which is scientifically untrue. But I think somehow that mentality has kind of carried over to esports. And the idea is now that essentially if you don't dedicate 100% of your time to the game, and you're not living, breathing, and exhaling
the game,
Legends, the game, you aren't really giving it your all.
You aren't grinding, as they say.
Yeah.
No rise and grind here.
Yeah.
No, but what you said about the whole LCK married men and things like that, it's very interesting how I feel like there's some difference between the LPL and LCK to the LEC and the LCS when it comes to girlfriends. Because in the LPL and LCK, it's like they have a girlfriend and then they're suddenly married. You're like, wow, oh, okay. Like DoimB, he married his girlfriend this year before, or during the Lunar New Year, they went and got their marriage certificate and all of that.
Right.
But then if you look at LEC and then LCS, it's very rare. I don't think there's anyone who's really married right now.
No. I do not think so. I do not think so. I mean, let's also be clear, Ambition was one of the older people in LCK. So it's not like, I mean, Score has had a long-time girlfriend too. Mm-hmm. He's not married. I think Ambition at the time was the only pro player in LCK who was married. So it's not like it's common in LCK either. And DoimB has been in the scene for a while. So we're not talking like Mako got married, right?
Oh,
like,
God, no.
So, and I think that does kind of come back to, when Crumbs came out with his Girlfriends Are Ruining LCS video, he was like, look, the video is mostly satirical. What I'm really saying is that pro players just are again really bad at interpersonal relationships and balancing their time.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of people chimed in and said, yes, so if you're a younger player or you're less experienced and you don't know how to play and also prioritize your career versus your relationships, it can be an issue. So I mean, I do think there is something to it, but it is kind of funny that people like keep coming back to this whole like girls are ruining pro play, and it isn't framed like we need to teach the pro players to like make better choices. It's almost always like the solution is almost always you're not allowed to date. It's not, well, like we need to have an open discussion about like young people or priorities or like what it means when you have a pro career and how much you should devote to the game, right? Like it always starts off with, well, so and so banged a chick and then she broke up with him and then his game sucked.
Because that's 1 + 1 = 2, and that's just what happens. Yeah, I think that there is a lot of focus. I feel like it kind of becomes this kind of, God, what's it called now again? But it basically becomes this thing where if people keep on saying that, oh, pro players, they can't just date willy-nilly or whatever, because if they do that, then their play is going to suck, then it kind of becomes this subconscious thing where pro players, I feel like some pro players might think that, oh, if I do have a girlfriend, then I'm just going to automatically be bad. While I feel like in some cases, maybe having a girlfriend or a partner might be good for some pro players, because then you have someone who you feel like you can lean on and they can support you. And it can also help you develop these interpersonal skills with someone else.
Yeah,
For example, with
sure.
Doublelift, when he took his break and he came back, he said that, oh well, his relationship with Bonnie helped a lot because she was there for him, especially while he was going through a very rough patch with the game and things like that. And he kind of felt like he hit a wall, but she was there and it was really good. And that might not be the case for everyone, but I feel that if the community and industry people, some of them, if they keep on harping on about how girlfriends are gonna ruin your performance and they're just bad for you, then players are just gonna, especially the young players, they're just gonna subconsciously associate relationships with something bad.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, if you go back to the Sanshao Says discussion, I think a lot of it originates from a time period where we used to think that esports players would only have a couple years to have a career.
Yeah.
So the idea would be, you have so few years. Like he even says, I think, in his rant, look, you really only have this certain period of time. Like that's the way he ends his discussion. Their time here is really short, so it's really valuable. And in their peak years, he says, and I quote, they should spend their time and energy on practicing hard and working on their team synergy. And I think that maybe made a lot more sense before, like maybe in 2015, 2016, where we did think that people would have really short careers. But now that we're backing into 2019, you have players who have been here for a really long time. And then you have players like, like Froggen, would go in and out of retirement, essentially, right? Like, he would, disappear from pro play and come back to pro play. You have players like, well, Alex H is kind of a weird example because he actually has a family.
Yeah.
But you have people who have been here for a really long time and still trying to make it one way or another as a pro player. And so I don't think it's reasonable anymore to expect that somebody would put their entire life on pause to be a League of Legends esports player. Whereas before, I think it was not reasonable, but it made more sense that, okay, I'm sacrificing a couple years of my development to pursue this thing. But now it's like, are you going to sacrifice 8 or 9 years of your life, never having a relationship
It's
for
like
this?
once you're 36, then you can have a relationship.
Right.
That.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, and
don't
I
know.
feel that this development has been shown in the way how gaming houses, more and more teams are starting to do this thing where they have an office, where they work, and then they have the apartment where they live, so they just walk there instead of everyone just living under the same roof. And that's also moving past the traditional esports infrastructure.
So here's a question. Do you think this same debate would come up if we were talking about all girls? Do you think if esports had been, let's live in an alternate universe where it's only women who play video games? That would be so weird. So it's only women who play video games, and there's only women esports pro players. And this is very, very heteronormative, but let's assume heteronormativity for a second.
Yes.
Do you think that we would have it boyfriends are ruining esports? For some reason, I feel like this is a very male argument to be so obsessed with sex and banning sex and abstinence as the way to go about this.
Yeah, I think that if we were in this alternate universe where only women played games, or women were the majority in pro play, and some would have boyfriends or relationships, I don't see this discussion popping up as much. And that could be because of this whole, the stereotype that women are caretakers and, they're sensible and mature and they can take responsibility for themselves. While men, it's more like, oh, well, they have to single-minded determination. They have to focus on this, and they have to put their ambitions here, and they can't, be distracted by other things. So I do feel that the whole, every time we come back, or esports comes back to the whole girlfriend argument or debate, it always feels like the focus is on, the women, and how women shouldn't distract pro players because they're busy, and you should respect that, or something like that.
Yeah, although to be fair, I would say, so Sanshao's is very, I I think because of the weird little bit in there where he's like, this girl used me for Clearlove,
Yeah.
it feels like very like girl blamey. And I would say that I feel like in other iterations of this conversation, like the Crumbs, like girlfriends are ruining LCS.
Yeah.
He makes it a point that he's really saying like the men are idiots, like the men cannot control themselves. But it is always framed in an almost like weirdly like rape culture-y kind of way, which is like the men cannot control themselves. Like the men have these impulses, and like that's why like instead of trying to figure out how to deal with them, like we should just ban it.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's kind of like I mean, I get that pro players are young and they're sheltered, but that's like I would say maybe the rookies that come up. And then we have players like Xmithy and Froggen and Score and Clearlove, and players who've been here for a long time. And not even them, but like Jensen as well. Like these are veteran players. And I feel like if you have that kind of mindset or attitude towards them, it feels a bit like, I don't know, like you're babying them. Like you don't trust them really to have their own judgment and figure things out by themselves.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I would be interested in knowing how the different teams handle it. Mm-hmm. So I believe that last year, the TL team, I want to say it was like almost everybody was dating, or there was a number of teams where it was like almost everybody was dating. It was either TL or TSM. It was like one of the big teams. So nowadays it's like not uncommon actually for a lot of teams to be all in a relationship. Mm-hmm. But it's like it's not, and I'm not saying it has to be public, but I kind of sometimes speculate wondering whether or not, like, if it's because people don't want others to be involved in knowing who their girlfriends are, or if it's they're afraid that if they show that they have a girlfriend, like, people will accuse them of not. Like, every single time they lose, somebody will say, oh, it's because
of your girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I understand both, like, the privacy issue, because unlike this being a big sport, like, Major League Baseball or the NBA or whatever, like, these are, in the end, just, like, micro-celebrities, right? So they don't want you knowing their personal life. But at the same time, I do sometimes wonder, because remember that whole Fortnite debate? Like, the minute somebody, right? Like, does some, like, loses, then all of a sudden everything in your personal life comes under this huge microscope.
It's like, oh, they lost because they spent too much time playing this game, and they spent too much time doing this instead of practicing. And it always comes back to the whole, like, this notion that you have to practice a lot, all the time. Otherwise, you are not a good player, or you're not a hardworking player, because for some reason, playing 14 hours straight makes you a great player, when in fact that's probably very unhealthy, and you should not do that for a long period of time. And
for sure.
Yeah, it's the same conversation with, like, the Fortnite issue during Worlds. It's the same with girlfriends, that they become this target of fault. Like, oh, well, it's because you have a girlfriend, and oh, this is what happens when pros have girlfriends. So I do understand that. I feel like maybe for this mindset to change, the community also has to change its attitude towards girlfriends and just relationships, and kind of accept that, players, they're gonna have longer careers, and they can't just dedicate everything to the game, because that's not really realistic. And it's also good, I think it's good for players to not just focus on the game, but have other hobbies or interests, or like people to meet outside of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I understand, like, esports is different. It's possible that the reality is, because of the way the game is structured, with meta changes, right, and patches and new champions and whole bunch, and new items, the game changes in a way that you do have to dedicate a lot of time to the game. So it might be truer for esports than for other things, that the less you practice, like, the way you practice and the amount you practice does have a direct effect that's more direct than in other sports. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think it's healthy. I just don't think that it's healthy to tie up these players' ability to like pursue other relationships
Yeah.
in that pro career. Like I just like something about it just really sticks in my craw to say like for the 4 years or 3 years or like if you're on this team you can't have a like something about it just like really
rustles my jimmies.
Me. Yeah, it really bothers me.
Yeah, I think it is pretty weird that like because these players are already giving up kind of the whole, their youth, so to say, to play this game. And for example, I know that Mako, he talked about that. He sometimes, he was asked if you weren't a pro player, what would you want to do? And he said, I would like to be an ordinary, like a high school student or a college student because he never got to experience that life. And he's probably never gonna get to experience that life. And that, that's like the sacrifice you have to make because you're taking your hobby or your interest and then you're making it your job. But it feels so weird that like, okay, so they're sacrificing this and then they also have to sacrifice having other interests or other relationships outside of esports because of some weird mindset that you have to dedicate your whole life to this. And that's just how it should be.
And as an extra shout out to any girlfriend or significant other of an esport pro, because that cannot be an easy relationship.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I know, so Travis Gafford, I know, has interviewed Doublelift's girlfriend, Bonnie, and she's talked about how difficult it is, because, I mean, I imagine dating Doublelift already would be kind of difficult, knowing his personality, but she does go into kind of the difficulties of finding time to spend with him, and then getting his attention, or getting any attention, really, during the season. So I, like Linda mentioned, I did write an article about FlyQuest's content, but I bring it up because one of the vlog episodes from FlyQuest was Santorin getting surprised by FlyQuest flying in his girlfriend for Valentine's Day. And one of the things he talked about there is that he never gets to have Valentine's Day with his girlfriend. So he's been dating her for a really long time. They met when TSM played in Katowice, actually. And, just the idea of, like, when the season comes, that's kind of their priority. And so that's all they have time to spend is on that. And then also, I can't imagine the scrutiny that comes up. Like, sometimes I accidentally wander into a Reddit thread and it's about who's dating which pro player. And just the way that people talk about it, it's so awful. So shout out to all of them. I can't imagine what that is like for all sorts of reasons. It's like you get all the worst parts of being a public figure and none of the best parts.
You basically get like put under a spotlight you didn't ask for, and then you're asked to like keep up this image of your boyfriend. So basically, like if you're dating a pro player, you can't really say what's on your mind on social media because then people are just gonna link that to your boyfriend. Like, how can you say that? Your boyfriend's doing this and that, and how can you have these kind of opinions and things like that? So it's a lot of responsibility and really just a lot of respect to the girlfriends and the partners of pro players out there.
Yeah. So props to all of you. I hope that we can move, like, I hope that as a community we can move on from blaming you for every time your significant other does something stupid. But in the game, I mean, like, just but anyway, transitioning through Clearlove, our second topic is esports haircuts.
Of course.
But specifically, I want to say, like, with an emphasis on bowl cuts. And the reason why this came up is you were having a conversation with Denise about Clearlove's hair. Tell us about Clearlove's hair.
Clearlove's hair is like, it's like when you spend, okay, let's say you have a deadline for a project, and you only have a few hours to do this massive project, and you finish it on time, but you don't want to look at it because you know it's bad. And then while you're reading it, you're just internally trying to tell yourself that this is a good thing. You're excusing yourself. And that's how I feel 80% when I look at Clearlove's hair. Like, I'm just trying to I look at it, I'm like, at least he has hair. It could be worse because it's so frustrating because when he has good hair, when he has a good hair day, I'm like, who is this man? What happened to him? Did somebody else come in and replace his spot? But when he has his bad hair days, which happen to be all the time, I'm just like, why? Why must you be such a gamer? Why?
So this is like a difficult topic to do because we are a strictly audio podcast, and I have no intention of trying to challenge my limited ability to wrangle technology to give examples. But Clearlove's hair is basically it's like a straight bowl cut that's kind of wispy.
Yeah, it's
right.
Yeah. It's so funny because you can basically, so in K-pop, for example, sometimes you can look at these pictures of idols and you can be like, oh, I know when this photo was taken because they have this hairstyle and that was from this when they filmed this music video. That's how I feel. That's kind of how it is with Clearlove. Like you look at some of his hairstyles, like, oh, this is Worlds 2015 because he had that hair. Because they're just so, I'm not gonna say striking. They're special. I'm gonna say they're special. That's how I feel.
I don't think it's that the haircuts are special. So sometimes they'll style him better than other times. But I'm looking just at the Google image searches of Clearlove, and it's all the same haircut. It's just that sometimes they like push his hair back. Unless like you're talking about like the really old days, like when he was on like Team WE, where he has what I call the traditional high school Chinese boy haircut. Which is like, it's cut way too short and it looks like a chia pet that you kind of shaved off the top of. But it's all the same haircut. Like, he reminds me of Doublelift in a way, who famously has never changed his hair since, I swear, he was in junior high. And so this fan had actually made him a t-shirt, and I'll link the tweet to it, where they just show him in his various stages from CLG to TSM to TL. And it's like the same haircut with a slight variation in bangs. And that's how I feel about Clearlove. It's like the same haircut.
Yeah, the funniest thing was during Worlds, like last year's Worlds, when they had to play the play-in stage, EDG, and they were in the LOL Park in Korea. I don't know who styled him, but the Korean stylist there, when he went up on stage, I think my Weibo almost exploded because people were like, who is this person?
Because it's handsome?
Yeah, there were so many screenshots, and they were like, why is his hair so good? Can we kidnap this stylist and bring them back to China? Like, please never leave his side ever again. It was so funny. And then, of course, when the actual world stage happened, he didn't style his hair. Because why would he style his hair? Why would he do that? Why would he? Oh, God. I just think about it. I'm like, the potential is there and you're wasting it.
Yeah. So, you have explained to me before, so there's like kind of a joke where people were like, oh, Clearlove like washed his hair today.
Oh yeah, so it's kind of like an LPL joke where I don't know if other pro players say this, but in EGG when they're streaming, sometimes like some of the players won't have their webcam on, and then fans will spam in the chat like, turn on your webcam, and then the players will joke and be like, I think sometimes in the beginning they probably were sincere, but then nowadays it's turned into a joke, and they mostly don't turn it on because they're lazy, but their excuse is basically, oh, I didn't wash my hair today, so I can't turn it on. And now it's become this running gag. It's like, oh, did you wash his hair today?
It is weird because, it's not like people, I think in LPL people treat their pros a little bit more like idols, right? Mm-hmm. But it's clear that we never picked these people to idolize because of their looks. And so it is a funny position that people, especially like Clearlove, are put in. He's so famous. Both men and women love him. He has been, in some ways, strangely objectified in ways that I don't think other pro players have been.
Yeah.
And so it's so awkward because it's not like we chose them because they had any particularly good taste in how to style or how to dress or how to look. And yet his appearance is under such a microscope, and they in LPL and LCK, they do a lot of makeup and styling work before they show up. Unlike in LEC and LCS, where of course they do makeup, but it's not that much. And you can tell when an LCK pro, for instance, moves from LCK to LCS, like the way they look on stage instantly changes.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because like these little minute changes are so scrutinized, and yet it's these people who we just basically see them on stage for like 5 minutes total in every game.
Yeah, I think it's basically part of the marketing of the LPL. Like they do market their pro players a bit like idols or the whole boyfriend material thing. And then some pros, they try their best to run with it, but they're also very awkward because, pro players. And then there are just some who kind of accidentally make it all work. And I feel like Clearlove's someone who's just perfected it because he's been in this industry for such a long time that now he just puts up with everything. And then people just love him for some reason. It's really funny. And yeah, his hair usually gets all the comments because his hair. I mean, I could write an essay about his hair, or his lack of hairstyles, and
yeah, he just gets like a bowl cut and then they style it differently. Like I don't actually think they're different haircuts. Like maybe I'm not looking at it correctly, but it just seems like they're not different haircuts. They're just hair that whoever the stylist is that is working with him, they do different things.
Yeah, I mean it's so funny because every time when he streams, if he streams, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, my hair's getting a bit too long. I'm going to cut it. And people are like, all right. And then he comes back, and it's the exact same bowl cut he's had for the past 5 years or something. It's like, did you cut it? And he's like, oh, well, it didn't come out the way I wanted it to be. It's like, what do you mean? It's the exact same hair you always have. Stop it.
Yeah, it's really, I think the only closest comparison I can think of really is Doublelift's haircut in the United States. Like Doublelift always gets the same bowl cut, and he has never variated from it, and it has been like 9 years.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine Doublelift without his bowl cut, and I can't.
You can't. You can't. And like, that's what's so funny is like, again, not a man that anybody picked because of like visual reasons, right? But it's so iconic now.
Yeah.
That if he ever variated it, like his brand would be ruined.
Mm-hmm. Like Doublelift's brand is everybody's trash and his bowl cut. That's it.
So also, funnily enough, this is like a very FlyQuest heavy episode all of a sudden. But so Wild Turtle played around with having a bowl cut for like a week, and he did a vlog in which he went through that week with his bowl cut. And basically all he did, as far as I can tell, he did get a haircut, but as far as I can tell what he did was he just like brushed his hair down instead of doing the classic updo thing that he's known for. So he reveals at the end of the vlog that it was a bait. He didn't actually get a bowl cut. It's just that like he was styling his hair different. But what is so shocking is that the man walked into the LCS like quarterfinals tees with that bowl cut. And so now forever, when you look at that quarterfinals tease video, he has a bowl cut.
It is forever immortalized right there.
And it's not good.
No, it's not good at all.
It doesn't look good on him. So it's just really funny that there are just so many bowl cuts in esports, and it's not like a good haircut.
Maybe it's because the bowl cut is just like the easiest one to manage, and gamer dudes, they don't have time for those kinds of things. They got to be on the grind all the time.
I guess that's what it is. Or, reversion to previous topic. Maybe if they all had girlfriends who would give them advice, they could just not have terrible haircuts all the time.
That's true. Like maybe someone should do a study where they take all the pros who have girlfriends and then they compare their hair with all the pros who don't have girlfriends and see how it is. But wait, we can't do that because Doublelift has a girlfriend and Clearlove has a girlfriend and they both still have their bowl cuts.
So, see, it is funny, but I know with Doublelift, like, I feel like that's his brand, and he cannot move away from it. So I do feel like he is an outlier. But the other thing that I think about a lot is like they get so busy. So with the LCK players, you can tell really obviously when they get haircuts, and it's always in the beginning of the split, and then like if there's a break, right? Like for Lunar New Year's, and then at the end of the split. So what ends up happening is, and this is really obvious in LCK for no other reason except for the fact that their stylists work so hard to make them look presentable. And you can tell there's a moment where their hair is just too long and it's like grown out and it's not dyed properly and it's just really long. And I always call that like the mid-season hair. And you can tell when it's the mid-season hair because they just don't get another haircut, right? And it's just like really funny to think about. Just they don't have any time, and so their hair grows out and it just looks awful. So maybe they always look awful because they just don't have time.
Yep, pro player, not everyone can look like, I guess not everyone can be fortunate enough to just naturally look good, like Smeb. Yeah.
So Smeb does not actually, again, so Smeb is an excellent example. He doesn't have good haircuts. What he has are stylists who will sometimes style his hair correctly. And one time he got a perm.
Oh yeah, his perm.
So again, so I don't know, maybe I'm over-explaining, but if there are people out there who are listening who are not Asian, it's very common for Asian men to get their hair permed. And when we say that, we don't mean like full-on curls usually. Usually to give it a little bit of texture because Asian hair traditionally is bone straight, very thick, very hard to style, and doesn't hold a curl very well. And so a lot of like the nice, and I put this in quotes, like the nicer haircuts you see, there's usually some sort of like perming going on. So one time Smeb got a perm and he mentions it on stream and he looks like an old lady. Like it's just like a poodle perm. It was awful. It was not good. And so
I mean, he looked fine. No. Okay.
He didn't look good. And so like I don't know where I'm going with this except that Smeb also is not a good example. Like he looks good when he gets styled well. I actually think like Smoothie has great hair this year especially. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to think like what are some pro players that you can think of who actually have good taste and good hair? I think Smoothie is one of them.
Okay.
He has that was good hair. And he's always had good hair.
That's true. Good hair. I know the iconic hair. Like Sneaky's iconic hair is basically I don't think he's ever gonna.
That's not good hair.
Okay, wait.
That's not good hair.
Okay, wait. Let me think. Good hair. Okay. So there's one player in LPL. He's on Fun Plus Phoenix, and he's the support. He's called Crisp, and he had silver hair recently, but because they won, they all made a bet, like the whole team, that if they placed first in the LPL regular season, they would dye their hair another color. So now he has pink hair, and it actually does suit him.
Huh.
So his hair choices are usually, they're on the safe side. They're not like super out there, apart from the whole color, but they're still, hairstyles that fit him. And not just crazy ones.
I was always very partial to Xerxes' long hair. I'm kind of sad that he cut it. I thought he rocked it.
Yeah.
When he was still on Unicorns of Love. I mean, like, as far as like long hair on men, which I think is a risky decision, I thought he looked pretty good when he had long hair.
Wasn't he? Is he like the only pro player who had long hair at some point, or like who's had long hair?
Well,
or is there someone else that I'm forgetting though?
I'm sure there's somebody. I mean, the first person that's coming to mind is Ryu Jae-hong on Overwatch.
Oh, but well, we all can't be as iconic as Ryu Jae-hong and his many hairstyles.
There's like our cousin podcast, Overwatch Hot Pot. Hot Pot podcast actually also did an episode where they just basically went through Ryu Jae-hong's hairstyles, and he is a support, flex support-ish, I think now, for Seoul Dynasty. And for a little while, he was rocking like this really long hair, kind of like Xerxes hair. I don't think it worked on him.
He had a lot of questionable haircuts. But the thing is that, again, he did try out a lot of them.
Yeah,
so at least he tried. I mean, at least he didn't stick with the 58 iteration of a Bowlcut. 5 years in a row.
That's true.
So that's something.
So the one last, I guess, little anecdote I want to put in here was I was going back through some interviews, and I remembered that in 2017, when Kudo was still on Africa Freaks, they had this interview with him in the spring where he talks about how he has what they call the 2-block haircut in Korea, and this basically I think is like short on the sides, long on top. Like I think that's all it was. So he said that he wanted to grow his hair out, but the minute he started growing his hair out, they started losing. So then he went back to a 2-block haircut. So I do think it is kind of funny that like maybe the pro players don't change because they feel like if they change, their results get bad. Like it's like a superstition thing.
It's like the girlfriend thing. We're going full circle again. Hair,
we are going full circle.
Girlfriend, subconscious, play bad. 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah, long story short is like I think all of us have tiny little pea brains and we don't like to change. Like I really think that's what this boils down to.
Yes, that, and also I feel like we need more, expert opinions like The Dive and Euphoria to go through because
On hair.
Yeah, because they have access to the pro players. We don't have access to them.
No, it's true. Like this is an unexplored territory. So here are the things that I want. Avali did that great behind the scenes vlog that was all about wardrobes at the LCS.
Oh, yeah.
Like I need that, but like for hairstyles
Exactly.
and for like pro players.
Like I want to hear them ask some pro players like what went through your head when you got this hairstyle? Or why have you not changed your hairstyle? And it's like, have you ever considered changing your hairstyle? For example, maybe if Doublelift, if he one day retires, which it feels like he won't, because it feels like he's going to play until the earth just burns itself to dust. But if he does retire, what if he just changed his hairstyle? Because he's like, oh, it's not my brand anymore. That would be the weirdest thing ever. I
don't know if I would be able to recognize Doublelift. Like, what if, if Doublelift was walking down the street and he had his bangs up.
Yeah.
I feel like I might let the man pass by and be like, that looks like Doublelift, but is it really Doublelift? Like, I do feel like it would be weird. I feel like it might actually be harder to recognize it.
Yeah, because it's like he's always had the Bowlcut. Like, I'm really trying to imagine him with like an updo or something like that, but I can't.
Even when Team Liquid and Ateo did that, like, they for some reason, I can't remember the exact reasoning behind it, but they did do like a semi-drag thing where they put him in lipstick and a fur coat to sell the Ateo thing. Even then, they kept the Bowlcut in place.
Yeah, they were like, even if we put makeup on Doublelift and style him in drag, as long as we keep the Bowlcut, everyone's gonna recognize him. And they're correct. It is part of him.
The other thing that I do want to plug really quickly on this subject, again, this is not League of Legends, this is Overwatch League, but there's this really great feature about the makeup ladies in Overwatch League from last year, and one of the players from the Houston Outlaws, Raucus, has long-ish hair and quite famously also has this really swept up thing in the front. Mm-hmm. And so they talk about working with his hair and how it's iconic and part of him. And so I do think if you are at all interested in knowing how pro players deal with their hair and what the makeup people have to go through, that's a really great feature that I'll also link in our episode notes.
Yeah, that's one thing that in Avali's her vlog that she uploaded, she also had where she met the makeup people behind the scenes of LCS. And then I'm not sure if her name was Michaela, maybe it wasn't, maybe I'm totally wrong, but the one who did Avali's makeup and hair, when they were fixing it, she was like, oh, I'll just put it, or Avali was like, so what's the plan today? And she was like, oh, well, I'm just gonna put it up in a simple braid at the back. And I just wish, I don't know, I kind of want more content like that on pro players. How do they get ready? How do they get prepared?
Yeah, so that's Cassandra Carr.
Okay,
so
Cassandra.
She's at KK.
Okay.
Yeah, she's at KK Makeup. They call her Cass. So she also has an Instagram, which is K Carr Makeup. And so if you go on her Twitter, she actually has pictures and videos of her doing makeup often for the LCS players. and I think Travis Gafford once had a kind of longer profile with her where she was doing his makeup while he was interviewing her about what it's like to work with them. But yeah, for sure. I would love to get more information about what it's like doing that, and whether or not like something with Wild Turtle, you know, like whether or not he's like, no, I like, this is how I do my hair this way, right?
Yeah. And
yeah.
just like for rookie players, imagine like you finally get to go to LCS and you finally get to play there. Or if you finally get to play in the LPL, in any of the major regions. And then you get there and they're like, okay, we're going to put some makeup on you. It's like, makeup? What is this? I've never encountered this before. I wonder how the reaction is, because I remember back in the days, I think it was Cacao, when he was in LPL, he got fined because he refused to put on makeup.
Yes. Yeah. So LPL famous, and LCK too, I think would fine people for showing up on stage. And I think the idea would be like they were so late that they didn't have time to do their makeup. Like that's that's part of what they're supposed to do, is they're supposed to show up on time to get their makeup done, to get their hair did, and then show up on stage. But yeah, I do remember that. Like the whole team got fined because all of them didn't show up on time. Like they showed up like second before the game was supposed to start, and they all got fined.
It's just so funny. Like you had one job, which is show up on time, and you didn't even pull it off.
And I remember there are pro players who have talked about this, which is if you've worked with the LCK makeup artists, like they really cake it on. Like they give them a lot of makeup, and that's, you can see sometimes with players who have bad skin. In the LCK, like they try really hard to hide it, and I think that same thing isn't, like in LCS is a lot more like natural makeup, so it's just like kind of hiding blemishes and getting rid of oil and doing their hair a little bit. So it would be fun, I think, also for somebody, maybe you, Linda, to do like a comparison of what pro players look like differently, like when they go through different region makeup artists, because it is different. There's a really obvious difference.
Yeah, that's why it's always kind of funny when Worlds start and they get to go to like the different countries, because every country kind of has their own stylist there. So I remember, like, I think Worlds in China, the makeup, you could kind of see that there was a big difference on the Western pro players if you compared it to when they played in like their own regions.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting for like, because this year Worlds is gonna be in Europe, so I wonder how much that's going to change.
Yeah. And I think, I know Cass went with LCS to Worlds, so when they were in South Korea, I do think she was doing makeup for the pro players, but I don't know if she went for Rift Rivals. But I feel like, if maybe not for LCS, I do feel like with like the LCK LPL stuff, it is a little bit different. Like you can tell when they move to some place without their makeup artists, and it's really different.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? Actually, you know where this shows up the most often is when you look at the headshots that people do.
Oh, yeah.
For, like, Worlds, like, the people who make it to Worlds. I don't know how that's done, but I always feel like the makeup and the hair is really different for those photos than normal.
Yeah, those photos in general are just... There was that infamous year in the LEC, when it was still the EU LCS, when all the pictures were so photoshopped. And they just looked so... You know the Gamsu one. Everyone knows the Gamsu one. When Gamsu was on Fnatic, now he's on Overwatch. But when he was on Fnatic, there was a picture of him, a headshot that...
Well, his face looked like it was the wrong size. Like, it looked like somebody pinched his face. It was very strange.
It's so funny. I don't know what happened, but it's a cursed image, and I love it a lot.
And famously, like, I think there's a couple of times with the Worlds ones where they were... I don't know what happened, but they would like overlay people's images on each other. So the reason why they knew about this is like somebody was wearing Hai's earring in his photo, because Hai has an earring and it's a signature look, right? Like very few other players wear a dangly earring, especially. So he had this little dangly earring, and I can't remember who it was, but somebody was like, wait a second, because they looked at the picture and he's wearing Hai's earring, and it's super weird. Maybe it's the photoshopping and less the makeup. But it's a funny thing. So let's move on to our final segment, which is recommendations.
Yes.
Linda, what is your recommendation for this?
So my recommendation for the week is the LCS Spring Split quarterfinals teaser, the one that is called All Fired Up, and I really liked it because this year it felt different because they actually had the fans as the backdrop for the players, and then they had each team that had made it to playoffs, they had like the one player, was it, or not, like they had all the players there, but the focus was a lot on the one representative. So TSM is Bjergsen, and then Sven would pop up, and then for TL of course is Doublelift, but then Jensen also had his own shots there. But the most important part was that I really liked just the fans in the background, and then seeing kind of how diverse it was, and it felt nice to see the camera highlight the fans. Like, okay, we're, pro players, they're doing this for the fans, and the fans are cheering for the pro players, and just this whole dynamic between the two. So I really liked that teaser. And also, you can see Wild Turtle's beautiful bowlcut or fake bowlcut in full view if you watch it. It's great.
Yeah, and my understanding is that I do think this is like, I do think they asked people to help this, so this isn't like an organic group of fans, but I really like the idea behind it. They all wear gear or, jerseys or merchandise during those scenes, so I think the other thing that it was really fun to highlight was they're not all in the jerseys. Like some of them are in like coats or hats, and sorry that this is such a FlyQuest episode, but if you look at the FlyQuest scene, there's even people in different iterations of the FlyQuest jerseys, which I thought was really interesting even for a team that's that young, because you expect that out of like the TSM or the C9 shots or even the TL shots, but I did like that they tried that with the FlyQuest ones too, just because it felt more real. Like it feels like what you actually see when you go to LCS, which is all these people, because they're not like buying like the same jerseys every single time. So it is fun to go see when you go to LCS. This is what it feels like. You'll go and you'll see the TL fans who are wearing like old TL uniforms, or like the TSM fans who've like been around forever, and so some of them are wearing like old TSM coats and stuff like that, or not coats, what I mean, jackets, like the bomber jackets.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is the Misfits Behind the Scenes docuseries did their 4th episode, which is called What Happened, and it's not that long. It's mostly a series of interviews with the players, not Gorilla, weirdly enough, and Dracos, kind of trying to break down what happened in the spring split. And I have a lot of feelings about this episode. It's both honest and obviously not honest, because unlike say like Breaking Point, they're not like showing you exactly what went wrong. There's a lot of things that you can read between the lines in terms of what they're saying. So one thing that they talk about is like they felt like the environment became really like blame focused, like people kept blaming each other for mistakes, so as a result people were really afraid to make mistakes or try things that were new in scrims. So like there's just a lot of hinting at behind the scenes things that I think is catnip always for fans, but they do it in a way that like I don't know how others feel about it. I felt like it was just the right enough of being transparent and then also not throwing people under the bus. Remains to be seen whether or not, Hussein says, oh, we've changed, like we've kind of pinpointed our issues, we'll come back better for summer. And this is like the second time I've heard that. I don't really know. But I think it's an interesting video. I'm not saying like, to say that I enjoyed it perhaps is a stretch of words, because I'm still really depressed about what happened to them in the spring. But if you're interested in either hearing what it's like maybe to be behind the scenes of a losing team or in Misfits in general, I recommend it.
Oh, Misfits. Let's hope for summer. That's like, that's the go-to. Hope for summer.
Yeah. And for them and KT.
Exactly. Oh yeah, for KT. Definitely for KT. Please. I am begging whatever esports god exists, just Score has suffered enough. Please, don't let him suffer again.
My God. On that note, Linda, thank you as always for joining me.
Thank you for always having me.
Where can we find more of you?
You can find me on iCrystallization on Twitter, and since LPL playoffs is about to start, I'm probably gonna be dying a lot. So please come join me.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay for more death!
Death and suffering!
I am Textol on Twitter, TXDOL. If you would like to find more of our episodes, we are on soundcloud.com/podofages. We're also on YouTube and Spotify. We also have a Twitter, which is twitter.com/podofages. Feel free to send us any questions, comments, future topics that you would like to hear us discuss. And we will try our best to include in episode notes pictures of esport player haircuts, since I know this is kind of a hard episode to follow along just audioly. But for Linda, thank you for, speaking on behalf of Linda, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye!
Bye!